Dime. We're going to do the last mission in your dime, and then we're going to go back
Okay,
to the first mission in your dime.
okay, wait a second. I put this in the wrong place.
You-
Moved it yesterday. Last mission in Medallion.
mhm.
Here we go. It's Zion. The Sadducees say we have a complaint against you. Perushim for you declare as a tahor stream, a pouring liquid. The Perushim say we have a complaint against you, Sadducees. That
Nope, that's the wrong one. We want to be on
no, that,
we want to be on Ches now.
hey, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Galian Saducci said, I have a complaint against you, Perusian, for you write the name of the ruler together with the name of Moses in the bill of divorce. Perusians say, we have a complaint against you, Galian Saducci, for you write the name of the ruler together with the name of God in one column. Moreover, you write the name of the ruler above and the name of God below. As it says, and Pharaoh said, who is Hashem that I should heed his voice to send out Israel? And when he was smitten, what did he say? He said, Hashem is the righteous one.
So all of these cases of the Tzrukim disputing with the Prushim is they're just every time they kind of get pushed off with a with an argument that isn't really the real argument. But what you do see is that they say, look, you hold a certain halacha. We said to the Tzrukim, even you hold it by a certain halacha, and then whatever their reasons are that why they hold by that halacha, they say, well, according to your own reasoning, you should keep this halacha. Yeah. Okay, Hajan Alach Maseches Yadayim. We'll be back there in just a few minutes, but let's go to Uktzin. Okay,
Okay.
so just before we start the Chazara and Uktzin, just important, we're starting a new Masechta, and I don't want to just brush over this. It's a very important point to get over here in Uktzin, is that there are three basic categories of, well, actually, let's talk about four categories. Okay, one that is the food itself. The food stuff itself is makabel tumah, is transmits tumah, everything. So that's not really the subject matter, but I'm just putting it in there for the sake of completeness. That's like level
Right.
zero. That's where you're it's a full-on connection. Then you have the next level is something that's a shomer, something that's a protective layer. For example, a shell. Or a
Mhm.
skin or something like that protects the inner fruit. Um, okay, that is, or not just dafka on fruit, it can also be on an animal that you've got, if you've got some sort of layer of skin or something that isn't itself edible, but it acts as a protector for the meat. Okay, so that's also considered a shomer. And the shomer is considered entirely like the fruit itself or the food itself. It is counted as transmitting. It transmits tumor. It both inward and outward, and it is measured for the minimum shear with the food itself. So to all intents and purposes, a shomer is like the food itself. Then you have the yad, okay, a handle. So, for example, it's a part of the fruit that is not eaten, but nonetheless functions for you to grip it. So, let's say you've got a carrot, okay, and you've got the green leaves that you pull the carrot out by, okay. That is a classic yad because you don't eat it with the carrot, okay, and it doesn't protect the carrot or anything. The carrot is fine without it, but you hold it by there. So there, it's one level down, and while it transmits tumor and both in and out, it is not measured together with the food in order to make the kazayas or whatever shear you're trying to make with the food, kibetza usually. Sorry. And then there are things that are completely unnecessary, the furthest level. So we'll see examples in the Mishnah, but things that you can't pick it up by, they don't function as a protector, and therefore they are not even susceptible to tumor at all. Okay, with that background, you can go ahead and do Chazara on
Would,
your
would a pineapple be in that last? Would a pineapple be in that last
which
category?
part of the pineapple?
Well, the skin around the where the pineapple is inside is sometimes it's hard
So
to
the
hold
skin is
because
a shomer, and that is 100% is makabel tumah. But the leaves
is that
on
is that
top
the
are not shomer. So
is that the last category that you talked about?
um,
The last category.
well, you could have an argument about the pineapple. Um, like, does the I mean, it does function as a yad. People do grip the pineapple by the leaves and pick it up.
On the
So
stalk, right?
that would be considered a yad, but it's not a shomer because it's not protecting the flesh inside.
Right. Right. Okay.
Okay,
All right.
next up.
Anything that is a yad but not a shomer contracts tuma and conveys tuma, but does not combine. A shomer, even if it is not a yad, contracts tuma, conveys tuma, and combines. Anything that is not a shomer and is not a yad either contracts tuma or nor conveys tuma. The roots of garlic, onion, and leek, when they are moist, and the protrusion, whether it is moist or dry, and the stalk that is directly opposite the food, the roots of the lettuce, round radish, oblong radish, these are birds of Ramea. The Yehuda says the large root of the radish combines, but its fibrous root does not combine. The roots of minnie and rue and the field greens and green and garden greens that one uprooted in order to transplant them, and the spine of an ear of grain and the grains covering, Reb Eliezer says also the dust covering. These contract tuma, convey tuma, and combine. These
Okay, that's
contract
it.
tuma.
That's it. We've done
That was it.
it was two from
Oh, yes,
yesterday.
we did the other one, right?
Right,
Okay,
you did one from your dime.
right.
Okay, so these Mishnayos are very simple, really. They're just giving you practical examples of what we were talking about at the beginning. What's a yad? What's a shomer? Okay,
Okay.
and giving some examples so you can understand more of what is a yad, what's considered a shomer. Okay, Elim
Okay.
mitam in umitam in velo mitztarfin. So here comes a list now of things that admit tuma and transmit tuma outwards. Velo mitztarfin and do not but do not join in order to make the minimum shear in order to convey tuma. Okay, in other words, these are yadayim. This is not it's a yad, a handle. Okay, shorashe hashum, the roots of garlic or habitalim and of onions. But kaflotos are some other kind of vegetable. What are they translated as? Kaflotos?
Roots of garlic, onions, and leek.
Leeks, thank you. Bisman shehem yeveshim, when they are dry. Okay, I think we had when they were in the previous mission, I think we said when they're fresh. Um, did we have the same thing when they were fresh? I don't know.
Roots of
Yes. The first line of the of Mishnah based is when they're fresh. Then they're considered a shomer. And now they could
it
just
says
put
the roots.
yad.
This is roots of garlic, onion, and leek when they are moist.
That's right. So this is the difference is that's when they're moist. Now we're talking about when they're dry. They're demoted to the level of yad as opposed to shomer. Amud she'eno mechovan keneged ha'ochel. A stalk that is not or amud. Wait, so amud is what are we
It says
talking about?
stalk here.
It is a stalk, yeah, a stalk that is not directed at that is not right next to the food. Okay, v'yad ha-parkil tefach mikan v'tefach mikan, and the handle of the izmora is a branch that you have grapes on.
Grapevine. The
Grape,
grapevine branch.
yeah.
Yeah.
So if it's more than a tefach away, then it's now considered a yad, not a shomer. Yad ha-eshkol kol shehu, and the handle of the cluster of grapes, any amount of inside the cluster of grapes is considered a yad, not a shomer. V'zanav shel eshkol sherikno, or the tail of an eshkol of a cluster of grapes that is emptied. We Shirikno. In other words, you can grip it by this part. You can grip the eshkol by this part. So it's there are some grapes still on the cluster. Otherwise, we wouldn't be talking about it. So it's not completely empty, but it's just a place where you can grip it now. That's now considered yad. Yad hamachbeid shel tmara. The machbeid is like a broom, but that's how dates grow on a date palm is from this long branch which looks like a broom. Okay. Arba'at tfachim. So 4 tfachim away from the fruit is still considered a yad. Anything more than that is not considered connected at all. The kane shel shiboles shlosha tfachim, and the reed of shiboles is of wheat, of an ear of grain. 3 tfachim. 3 tfachim from the grain itself is still considered a yad. Yad kol haniktarim shlosha, and anything that's harvested, like grain, you need 3 tfachim away from the produce itself is considered a yad. V'she'ein darkan likatzer, but if something is not generally harvested, in other words, you uproot it. So, for example, lekatzer is when you like go chopping things off at ground level like you do with wheat. But when you're harvesting something like carrots, when you right, she'en darkan likatzer, when you don't cut it off, when you're actually uprooting it. Okay, yadayim v'sharshem kol shehen. Then the yadayim and the shorish is any amount, however much is attached to it is considered a yad. Umal in shel shibolin. The malin is that's the kind of the hair that's on the top of a shibolis. You know the like with the stalks, the grain has got those little hairs coming off the top.
Right, right.
Arei elu mitamin mitamin velo mitztarfin. It's also considered a yad, not and not a shomer. Because you could grip the ear of grain from those things,
Yeah.
but it's not considered part of it's not a shomer, and therefore it doesn't join for human shear. Okay, Mishnah Daled. Elu lo mitamin velo mitamin velo mitztarfin. Here are things on the lowest level that do not count as part of the fruit at all, not considered for tumah at all. Shorshe kulse hakruv. So the roots of kruv is cabbage.
They call it kohlrabi. Yeah.
Kohlrabi. Okay, fine. V'chulfos teradim, and the roots that are attached to spinach, but
Spinach, beet, and turnip.
ham and
Spinach, beet, and turnip. Right.
turnip. Yeah. Es shedarkam ligazes v'nekaru, things that you generally cut off when they're uprooted. Rabbi Yossi Matami Bechulan, Rabbi Yossi disagrees with this and says that they are still considered at least a yad. But he agrees um, about the roots of the kulse akrov and the lepes, so the turnip and the cabbage. What did we say it was?
Kohlrabi stems and turnips.
My translation did not say kohlrabi. I think it said cabbage, but whatever the case, it's not important what the individual cases are. The important thing is that they're considered not part of the fruit and not part of whatever you pick it up by. Kol yados ha'ochlin shebesasan begorin. Okay, any handles of food that uh, dashotan that you basically that you cut off that you crush
Yeah, all handles of foods that are crushed on the
that
threshing floor.
are crushed on the threshing floor. Okay, so that's all considered tahor, except for Rabbi Yossi, who still held that it's tameh. Psiga shel eshkol sherikna. The psiga, gosh, these words are not common words, but the eshkol anavim katan. So it's a small cluster of grapes that comes out from the spine of the larger grape, of the larger cluster, that has now been emptied. That is considered tahor. It's too far from the original eshkol. Shear ba gargir echad, but if there's one grape left on that cluster, then it's still considered a yad to that grape. Sharvit shel tamara sherikano, and again a branch of dates that is completely emptied is of course tahor. Shear ba tamara achas tameh, but if there's one date left on it, then it's still considered a yad to that date. Chen kitnios, same thing goes for legumes. Sharvit sherikno tahor. If you have a pod that is that has been emptied, it is tahor. The pod itself is tahor. Shir bo gargir echad tamei. But if there's one, let's talk about peas or beans. Right? If there's one seed left inside there, it's still tamei because it's actually a shomer to the bean or the pea. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah matar b'shel pol. He says that when it comes to pol specifically, this kind of bean, right?
Fava beans.
Fava bean.
Fava.
Okay. Mitame b'shel kitnios. So he says with pol he agrees that it's tahor, but he's matame with kitnios with the peas and beans. Mipnei shehu rotzeh b'mishmoshan. because he actually, well, actually, some people have changed the girsa to say b'shimoshan with the usage, uh, because he will use it as a handle in order to the chosbo k'sheyirtze lenakos hakitnios me'avak u'mipsolet, because he will still use it as a tool to clean up um, the actual beans and peas that he has emptied out. And the halacha does not follow Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. Once the pot has been emptied out, it is no longer susceptible to tumah. Okay.
Okay.
Um, these Mishnayos might come across as like complicated because there are lots of different cases, but really it's all the same. It's all the same principle in action.
Right.
Um,
Mm.
you've got to classify between the food itself, the yad, the shomer, and what's not needed at all. Okay, let's go back to Mishnah Aleph in Yadayim.
A revius of water is the minimum amount for washing hands for one person, and even for two people. A half log is the amount for 3 or 4 people. From a log and more, the amount 5 or 10 or even 100 people. Rabbi Yossi says, provided there is no less than a revius for the last of them. One may add to the second waters, but one may not add to the first waters. And one may pour into the onto the hands from all types of vessels, from even from dung vessels, from stone vessels, and from mud vessels. But one may not pour into the hands from the walls of vessels, nor from the bottom of an earthenware bucket, nor from the cover of a barrel, nor may one pour onto the hands of a friend from his own cup's hands, because we may not draw water from mekatos, nor may we consecrate mekatos, nor may we sprinkle mekatos, nor may we pour into the hands except with a vessel. And nothing with a sealed covering can protect its contents from tumah except vessels, and nothing can protect foodstuff from contracting tumah from an earthenware vessel except vessels. Regarding water that became unfit for an animal to drink, if it is in vessels, it is invalid, but if it is in the ground, it is valid. If ink, gum, or copper has fell into the water and its color changed, it's invalid. If one used the water for any manner of work, or if he soaked it in his bread, it is invalid. Shimon the Timonite says if he intended to soak it in this water and it fell into a different water, it is valid.
Okay, Machshirin,
So,
Gimel Vav.
um, if his olives were put on the roof and rain fell on them, if he is happy, it's included in the law of water is placed. Rabbi Yehuda says it is impossible not to be happy, rather only if he blocks the drain pipe or if he rolled the olives about in the water. Regarding the donkey drivers who are passing through a river and their sacks fell into the water, if they were happy, it is included in the law of water is placed. Rabbi Yehuda says it is impossible not to be happy, rather only if they turn the sacks over. If one's feet were full of mud and similarly the feet of his animal, and he passed by through a river, he was happy. If he was happy, is it included in the law of water is placed. But Judah said it is impossible not to be happy only if he stood still and rinsed. With regard to a person and a non-kosher animal, it is always tummy. Regard one more, yeah.
Yes.
Regarding one who brings wheels and cow gear down to the water during a heat wave in order that they bond, this water is included in the play in the water in the law of water is placed. Regarding one who brings an animal down into the water to drink, the water that comes up in its mouth is included in the law of water placed. But for the water which is brought up on his legs, it is not included in the law of water is placed. If he intended that his legs be rinsed, even the water brought up on his legs is included in the water in place. During the time of foot sores and threshing, the water was always tummy. If a deaf mute, a deranged person, or a minor brought the animal down to the water, even though he intended that its feet be rinsed, the water is not included in the law of its place, and they have legal action, but they do not have legal intent.
Okay.
And
Hara.
if one sprinkles with tummy hyssop, if it contains an egg's volume, the water is invalidated and the sprinkling is invalid. If he does not contain an egg's volume, the water is valid, but its sprinkling is invalid. And if it contaminates its fellow, and its fellow contaminates its fellow, and even if they are 100. One who is tahar for katos water, whose hands contracted tumah, his body is tummy, and if he contaminates his fellow, and his fellow contaminates his fellow, even if they are 100. A flask of katos water whose exterior contracted tumah, its inside is tummy, and it contaminates its fellow, and its fellow contaminates its fellow, even if they are 100. The bell and the clapper are considered a connection. The spindle for coarse material, one should not sprinkle on the spindle or the whorl, and if he sprinkled, it is sprinkled. For flax, it is considered a connection. The height of a crib that is fastened to rings is considered a connection. The block is not considered a connection, and not for tuma and not for tahara. And all utensil handles which are bored are considered a connection. You know, Yukan even Nori says even wedge handles. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Tomorrow we'll finish para.
Yeah, and then after that we move on to Taurus.
Taharos.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
Meila.
Mila. The blood service of Kedushay Kedoshim affects the offering both leniently and stringently, but the blood service of Kedoshim Kalim affects it only stringently. How so regarding Kosher Kadoshim before the throwing of the blood on the altar, the sacrificial parts and the meat are subject to Me'ilah, but after the throwing of the blood, the sacrificial parts are still subject to Me'ilah, but the meat is not subject to Me'ilah. For both the sacrificial parts and for the meat, one is now liable for pickle, noser, and tame. In the case of Kadoshim Kalim, it only affects the offering stringently. How so? Regarding Kadoshim Kalim, before the throwing of the blood, neither the sacrificial parts or the meat is subject to Me'ilah. After the throwing of the blood, the sacrificial parts are now subject to Me'ilah, but the meat is still not subject to Me'ilah. For both the sacrificial parts and the meat, one is liable for pickle, noser, or tame, and it emerges that the blood service of Kadoshim affects the offering leniently and stringently, but the blood service of Kadoshim affects it only stringently. The buried katos is subject for Me'ilah from when it is consecrated. Once it undergoes Me'ilika, it becomes prepared to be disqualified through contact with the Tevel Yom. Through contact with a Mekusa, Kapurim, or through remaining past its time, once its blood is sprinkled on the altar, one is liable on its account for pickle, noser, and tummy, and it is no longer subject to Me'ilah. Okay.
One more.
This buried outlet is subject to Me'ilah from when it is consecrated. Once it undergoes Melika, it becomes prepared to be disqualified through contact with the Tevel Yom, through contact with the Machusa Kapurim, but through remaining past its time. Once he squeezes out its blood against the altar, one is liable on its account for pickle, noser, and tame, and it remains subject to Me'ilah until it goes out to the place of the ashes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
If he paid him the principal but did not pay the fifth, if he forgave him the principal but not forgive the fifth, or if he gave him for both, save less than the worth of putra of the principal, he need not pursue him. If he paid him the fifth but did not pay him the principal, or if he forgave him the fifth and did not forgive him the principal, or if he forgave him for the both, save for the words or the putra of the principal, he must pursue him. If he paid him the principal and swore to him concerning the fifth, he pays a fifth upon the fifth until the principal dwindles to less than worth of a pruta. The same applies to a deposit, as it is said, concerning a deposit or a loan or a robbery, or if he oppressed another or found a lost togato and lied about it, and swore falsely, this one pays a principal, a fifth, and a guilt offering. Where is my deposit? He said to him. It is lost. I adore you. And he said, Amen. And witnesses testify against him that he ate it. He pays the principal. If he confesses himself, he pays the principal the fifth and a guilt offering. Where is my deposit? He said to him, it was stolen. I adore you. And he said, Amen. And witnesses testify against him that he stole it. He pays a twofold payment. If he confesses himself, he pays the principal, a fifth, and a guilt offering.
Okay.
And
Erevin.
the cistern is in a public domain, and its embankment is 10 feet high, and the window above it may be used to draw from it on the Sabbath. If a rubbish heap is in a public domain, it's 10 tefachim high. The window above it may be used to pour water onto it on the Sabbath. A tree which droops over the ground, if its branches are not 3 feet higher than the ground, we may carry beneath it. If its roots are higher than 3 feet above the ground, we may not sit on them. The door of a backyard, thorns which are in a breach, and mats which may not close with them unless they are above the ground. A person may stand in a private domain while unlocking in a public domain, or in a public domain while unlocking. I'm sorry?
May not.
A person may not stand in a public domain while unlocking in a public domain, or in a public domain while unlocking a private domain, unless he makes a partition 10 tefachim high. These are the words of Reb Meir. They said to him, it happened that at the butcher's market in Yerushalayim, they would lock and place the key in a window above the door. Rabbi Yossi says it was the wool merchant's market. A doorbell.
That's it.
That's it. I'm sorry, I can't remember. What are we doing next? We said we're starting a new one tomorrow. Which one did we say?
Tomorrow is no, we're not going to start it tomorrow. It's the next day. But Taurus is coming up because we're finishing Para and then moving on to Taurus.
Toros. Okay, Toros.